I am Dr. Laura Moreno, and in this video, I want to talk to you about apple cider vinegar, one of the most popular home remedies in the world and also one of the most misunderstood. Many people take it daily believing it will fix digestion, control blood sugar, help with weight, detox the body, or improve overall health. And while apple cider vinegar does have some real effects, it also has risks that are rarely mentioned and mistakes that can quietly harm the body over time. Apple cider vinegar is not just flavored water. It is an acidic substance with active compounds that interact with the digestive system, teeth, throat, metabolism, and even certain medications. That means it can be helpful in specific situations, but it is not harmless and it is definitely not for everyone. One of the most commonly talked about benefits is digestion. Some people feel that apple cider vinegar helps them digest heavy meals, reduces bloating, or improves the feeling of fullness after eating. This can happen because the acidity may support stomach acid levels in people who naturally produce less acid. For those individuals, a small diluted amount before meals can feel helpful. However, this benefit only applies to a specific group of people. If your stomach already produces enough or too much acid, apple cider vinegar can worsen symptoms like heartburn, reflux, burning, or stomach pain. Many people assume digestive discomfort means low acid, when in reality it is often irritation or excess acid. Another commonly mentioned benefit is blood sugar control. Some people notice that taking apple cider vinegar before or with meals reduces blood sugar spikes. This effect can happen because it slows gastric emptying and influences how carbohydrates are absorbed. But this effect is mild and inconsistent, and it does not replace proper dietary habits or medical care. Apple cider vinegar is also often promoted for weight loss. The reality is that it does not burn fat. Some people feel slightly less hungry or more satisfied after meals, which can indirectly influence intake, but the effect is modest. Relying on apple cider vinegar for weight loss creates unrealistic expectations and often leads to disappointment. Some people use apple cider vinegar for bloating or gas. Again, for a small group, it may help. For others, it increases gas, discomfort, or stomach irritation. The response is very individual. There is also a belief that apple cider vinegar detoxes the body. This is a myth. Your liver and kidneys already detoxify the body. Apple cider vinegar does not remove toxins. What it can do is influence digestion and metabolism in limited ways. Now let's talk about how to take apple cider vinegar properly, because this is where many people make serious mistakes. Apple cider vinegar should never be taken undiluted. Drinking it straight exposes your teeth, throat, and stomach to strong acid. Over time, this can erode tooth enamel, irritate the esophagus, and damage the stomach lining. A safer approach is to dilute a small amount, usually 1 teaspoon to 1 tablespoon, in a large glass of water. Even then, it should not be taken multiple times a day or for long periods without breaks. Timing matters. Taking apple cider vinegar on an empty stomach can be irritating for many people. Taking it before meals may be better tolerated, but this still depends on the individual. Using a straw and rinsing the mouth afterward can reduce damage to teeth, but it does not eliminate risk entirely. Now let's talk about the risks that are rarely mentioned because this is the part most people don't hear. One major risk is tooth enamel erosion. Even diluted vinegar is acidic. Daily exposure can weaken enamel over time, leading to sensitivity, cavities, and dental damage. Another risk is throat and esophagus irritation. Chronic exposure to acid can cause inflammation, burning, or even injury, especially in people prone to reflux. Apple cider vinegar can also worsen acid reflux and gastritis. Many people continue taking it despite worsening symptoms because they believe discomfort means it's working. That belief is incorrect and dangerous. It can also affect potassium levels when used excessively, which can impact muscle function and heart rhythm in susceptible individuals. Apple cider vinegar can interact with certain medications, including diuretics, insulin, and medications that affect potassium levels. This is especially important for people with diabetes or heart conditions. Another overlooked risk is delayed diagnosis. Some people use apple cider vinegar to self-treat symptoms like indigestion, bloating, or blood sugar issues instead of getting evaluated. This can delay proper diagnosis and care. There is also the issue of dependency. Some people feel they need apple cider vinegar to digest or feel normal. This can mask underlying problems rather than resolve them. Not everyone should use apple cider vinegar. People with reflux, ulcers, gastritis, kidney problems, eating disorders, or sensitive teeth should avoid it or use extreme caution. Pregnant individuals should also be cautious. Children should not take apple cider vinegar regularly. Their tissues are more sensitive, and the risks outweigh any potential benefit. Another common mistake is combining apple cider vinegar with other acidic or irritating substances, increasing the burden on the digestive tract. Quality matters as well. Not all apple cider vinegar products are the same. Some are highly processed and lack beneficial compounds, while still retaining acidity. Apple cider vinegar is not a cure-all. It is a tool with a narrow window of potential benefit and a wider range of possible harm when misused. If you feel better using a small, diluted amount occasionally and have no negative effects, it may be acceptable for you. But if you experience burning, discomfort, dental issues, or worsening symptoms, that is your body asking you to stop. Natural does not mean neutral. Acid is acid, regardless of the source. The most important question is not whether apple cider vinegar is good or bad, but whether it is appropriate for your body, your health history, and your current needs. And that is something only careful observation and respect for your body's signals can answer as you continue learning what supports your health and what quietly undermines it over time. And that careful observation is what most people skip. Apple cider vinegar is often taken automatically as part of a routine copied from social media without stopping to notice how the body actually responds. But the body always responds, even when we don't immediately connect the dots. One important thing to understand is that apple cider vinegar changes the environment of the digestive tract. Acidity affects enzymes, stomach lining, and gut motility. For some people, this shift feels supportive. For others, it creates irritation that builds slowly over time. The absence of immediate pain does not mean there is no damage happening. Another overlooked effect is how apple cider vinegar influences appetite signals. Some people feel reduced appetite after taking it, which they interpret as a benefit. But appetite suppression is not always positive. In some cases, it can interfere with normal hunger cues, leading to irregular eating patterns or undereating, which then affects energy, mood, and metabolism. There is also the issue of long-term stomach adaptation. When acidic substances are introduced regularly, the stomach may adjust its own acid production. In some people, this can create dependence, where digestion feels off without the vinegar. This does not mean the vinegar is fixing digestion. It may be altering it in a way that reduces the stomach's own regulation. Another common misunderstanding is the belief that apple cider vinegar balances pH in the body. The body tightly regulates blood pH on its own. Drinking vinegar does not make the body more alkaline internally. What it does is expose local tissues to acid, especially the mouth, throat, stomach, and upper digestive tract. Some people report improvement in bloating initially, followed by worsening symptoms weeks later. This pattern is important. Initial stimulation can feel helpful, but chronic irritation can appear later. Many people miss this delayed effect and continue using the vinegar despite growing discomfort. Apple cider vinegar can also affect people with sensitive nervous systems. Acidic stimulation can increase sensations like jitteriness, nausea, or discomfort, especially when taken on an empty stomach or during periods of stress. Another risk that is rarely discussed is how apple cider vinegar affects people with kidney vulnerability. The kidneys play a role in managing acid load. In people with existing kidney issues or predisposition, excessive acid intake can place additional strain on these organs. There is also the risk of using apple cider vinegar as a substitute for proper care. People with ongoing digestive issues, blood sugar problems, or weight concerns may rely on vinegar instead of addressing diet, sleep, stress, or medical evaluation. This delays real solutions. Apple cider vinegar is sometimes taken together with supplements or medications without considering interactions. Acidic environments can alter absorption of certain substances, changing how they work in the body. Another subtle effect is on the voice and throat. Chronic acid exposure can cause hoarseness, throat clearing, or a sensation of a lump in the throat. These symptoms are often misattributed to allergies or stress. It's also important to talk about frequency. Even if apple cider vinegar is tolerated, using it every day, multiple times a day, increases cumulative exposure. The body rarely benefits from constant stimulation. Periods of use followed by breaks are much safer than continuous use. The way people talk about apple cider vinegar often ignores individual differences. Someone else's positive experience does not predict yours. Bodies vary in stomach acid levels, mucosal protection, enamel strength, and sensitivity. Another point worth mentioning is that the mother in unfiltered apple cider vinegar is often highlighted as a major benefit. While it contains bacteria, it does not function as a probiotic in the same way fermented foods do. Its presence does not cancel out the acidity. Some people use apple cider vinegar for skin or hair, but ingestion and topical use are very different. Ingesting acid affects internal tissues in ways that external use does not. The most responsible way to approach apple cider vinegar is with restraint, curiosity, and honesty about how it affects you. If it causes discomfort, it is not cleansing or working. It is irritating tissue. Health is not built on forcing the body to tolerate something uncomfortable. It is built on supporting balance. Apple cider vinegar can have a place for some people in small amounts for short periods, with careful dilution and attention, but it should never be treated as a daily necessity or a universal solution. When you step back from hype and listen to your body, the picture becomes clearer. What helps should feel supportive, not harsh. What supports digestion should not damage teeth or burn the throat. And learning to make that distinction is part of developing a healthier relationship with natural remedies, one where you use tools wisely, respect their limits, and continue refining your understanding of what truly helps your body function well over time rather than following trends that promise more than they can safely deliver. And that healthier relationship with natural remedies often begins with letting go of the idea that more is better. Apple cider vinegar is a perfect example of how something can move from occasional support to chronic irritation when it becomes a habit instead of a tool. The body thrives on balance, not constant correction. Another important aspect to consider is timing in relation to meals. Some people take apple cider vinegar right before eating, others during meals, and some long after. Each timing affects the body differently. Taking it before meals may stimulate digestive activity, but it can also irritate an already sensitive stomach. Taking it during meals may dilute stomach acid rather than support it. Taking it long after meals often offers no benefit and may simply expose tissues to acid unnecessarily. The context of what you eat also matters. Taking apple cider vinegar alongside highly processed or very sugary meals does not neutralize their effects. It does not cancel out poor dietary choices. This belief often leads people to rely on vinegar instead of adjusting habits that are actually driving their symptoms. Another subtle issue is how apple cider vinegar affects people with low body weight or restricted diets. Acidic substances can reduce appetite further and interfere with adequate intake. In these cases, what looks like a digestive aid may actually worsen nutritional balance. Some people report nausea after taking apple cider vinegar and assume this means their body is detoxing. In reality, nausea is a sign of irritation or intolerance. The body does not need to feel unwell to improve health. Discomfort is not a requirement for benefit. There is also the social and psychological component. Because apple cider vinegar is so widely promoted, people may feel pressure to tolerate it even when it makes them feel bad. They assume the problem is them, not the substance. This mindset disconnects people from their own bodily signals. Another rarely mentioned risk is how apple cider vinegar affects the lining of the stomach over time. Chronic exposure to acid can weaken protective mechanisms, making the stomach more vulnerable to irritation from foods, stress, or medications later on. In people with reflux, apple cider vinegar often worsens symptoms, even if it feels temporarily relieving. Acid can briefly numb sensation while increasing inflammation underneath. This delayed effect is one reason reflux symptoms sometimes worsen weeks after starting vinegar. Apple cider vinegar also affects the microbiome indirectly. Changes in stomach acidity influence which bacteria survive and move into the intestines. This shift is not always beneficial and can contribute to digestive imbalance in some people. Another practical concern is dosage creep. People often start with small amounts and gradually increase, thinking they are building tolerance or increasing benefit. In reality, they are increasing exposure and risk. The body does not need to be pushed. When something supports health, it usually does so gently. If someone decides to try apple cider vinegar, it should be done for a specific reason, for a limited time, and with a clear plan to stop if discomfort appears. Using it indefinitely without reassessment is not wise. It's also important to remember that many of the benefits attributed to apple cider vinegar can be achieved through less irritating means. Balanced meals, adequate protein, fiber intake, regular movement, and stress regulation often provide similar or better results without the risks. Hydration, chewing food well, eating mindfully, and maintaining regular meal timing support digestion far more reliably than adding acid. Blood sugar balance depends much more on meal composition and timing than on vinegar intake. Weight regulation depends on sustainable habits, not acidic drinks. When apple cider vinegar is removed from the pedestal it's often placed on, it becomes easier to see it clearly. A substance with limited potential benefit and meaningful potential harm when misused. Using it thoughtfully requires honesty, restraint, and respect for the body's feedback. And as you continue learning to evaluate popular remedies with a critical but open mind, you build confidence in your ability to choose what truly supports your health, guided not by trends or promises, but by how your body responds over time, allowing you to make calmer, safer decisions that align with long-term well-being rather than short-term hype. And that ability to step back from hype is especially important because apple cider vinegar is often marketed as a solution for very different problems at the same time: digestion, blood sugar, weight, skin, energy, detox, immunity. When one product is said to do everything, it's usually a sign that expectations are inflated far beyond reality. One thing that deserves attention is how apple cider vinegar affects the lining of the mouth. Even when diluted, repeated exposure to acid can irritate the gums and soften enamel. Some people notice increased tooth sensitivity over time and don't connect it to the vinegar because the damage happens gradually, not suddenly. Rinsing the mouth with water afterward helps, but it does not fully protect against cumulative exposure if the habit is daily. Brushing immediately after taking vinegar can actually worsen enamel erosion because enamel is softer right after acid exposure. Another area people rarely think about is how apple cider vinegar interacts with appetite-regulating hormones. By slowing gastric emptying, it can alter how hunger and fullness are perceived. For some people, this feels helpful. For others, it creates nausea, early fullness, or irregular eating patterns that disrupt energy levels. There is also a group of people who experience lightheadedness or weakness after taking apple cider vinegar. This can be related to changes in blood sugar, electrolyte balance, or stomach irritation. These symptoms are often brushed off as unrelated, but they are important signals. Apple cider vinegar is sometimes taken first thing in the morning as part of a morning routine. For sensitive individuals, this is one of the worst times to take it. The stomach lining is more vulnerable after fasting, and acid exposure at that moment can trigger irritation that lasts all day. Another misunderstood idea is that apple cider vinegar improves gut health because it is fermented. Fermentation does not automatically make something gut-friendly. The acidity of vinegar limits the survival of beneficial bacteria in the digestive tract. It does not function like fermented foods that provide live cultures. People with a history of eating disorders should be especially cautious. Apple cider vinegar is sometimes used to suppress appetite or control weight in unhealthy ways. In these cases, it can reinforce harmful patterns and should be avoided. There is also the issue of kidney stones. In susceptible individuals, altering acid balance and mineral handling can influence stone formation. This is another reason people with kidney concerns should not use vinegar casually. Some people mix apple cider vinegar with lemon juice, ginger, or other acidic ingredients, assuming more is better. This compounds irritation and increases risk without adding benefit. The internet often presents apple cider vinegar as a harmless daily habit, but daily habits shape health over years, not days. Small irritations repeated over time matter. When someone feels better after stopping apple cider vinegar, that is also important information. Relief after stopping is not failure, it is clarity. The body does not need constant fixing. Most systems regulate themselves when given the right conditions. Adding something strong like vinegar should be the exception, not the rule. Using apple cider vinegar responsibly means being willing to stop, reassess, and choose other strategies when needed. It also means understanding that discomfort is not proof of effectiveness. Burning, nausea, throat irritation, or dental sensitivity are signs of harm, not healing. When you shift your focus from chasing benefits to minimizing harm, your decisions become much clearer. Apple cider vinegar can be used occasionally by some people in small diluted amounts for specific reasons, but it should never override the body's signals or replace foundational health practices. And as you continue refining how you evaluate popular remedies, you strengthen your ability to protect yourself from subtle, long-term harm that often goes unnoticed until damage is done, while building a more grounded, respectful approach to health that prioritizes sustainability, awareness, and listening carefully to what your body is telling you day after day. Subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss future videos where we talk about health in a clear, balanced, and responsible way. Share this video with someone who may be considering apple cider vinegar, leave your questions or experiences in the comments, and join me as we continue learning how to listen to the body, question health trends, and make safer choices for long-term well-being.